In defining tax, we are going to emphasize important points of the elements of the definition. First is we have this enforced contribution. That would mean that the tax is not voluntary. Hence, if you will be subjected to tax, let's say if you're a businessman having a sales of more than 3 million annually, then you will be subjected to VAT and you need to file tax quarterly. Okay, since you fall under the criteria of the VAT system. Second is the VAT is proportional. The tax is proportional. VAT is an example of this proportional, or like other ad valorem or specific tax, specific excise tax, of which the computation of the tax is in proportion to the tax base, which is usually the sales price, or if there's any specific tax based on the number of liters or the content, or if ad valorem based on the cost of production for the excise tax, or the selling price of the excise tax. So the burden is distributed based on reasonable rule of apportionment. Okay, that is the proportional, reflecting taxpayers' ability to pay or the value of the property. But in the Constitution is mandating progressive, okay, tax system, which means that the higher the income, the higher the tax rate. Okay, so the basic example of that is the schedular tax rate, which is for individual. So we started from 0 and 250 and below none, then up to the 35%. Both of this proportional and the progressive are allowed. So the mandate word in the Constitution is interpreted as encouragement only. So because both are acceptable, proportional and the progressive tax system. The next is, this is levied by the tax lawmaking body. So strictly or exclusive only for the tax law, for the legislature or the lawmaking body. But again, there are some exceptions to the rule, like those tariff that can be done by the president within a certain range, and the LGU that could also raise the revenue in the form of taxes, but it is only confined or legislative on the legislative body, like the council. Inherent in sovereignty, it is imposed by state by virtue of supreme power and authority inherent. So it coexists with the state. Well, logically, because tax power is one of the sovereign powers of the state and one of the part of the state. So therefore it coexists. And the last is the public purpose. So it's always for the public purpose. When you raise tax, when you collect tax, it's always for the public purpose. So this particular element of the law enactment or requirement is really useful in deciding whether that particular tax law is valid or invalid. Because again, according to the inherent powers, number one, it is for public purpose. And also, according to the Constitution, that is the due process, one of the endpoint, and under the substantive, the end compliance, to make it in accordance with the due process of law. substantive, it must be for public purpose. So that's it. So these are all the elements of defining tax.